Can I ask you a quick question? Do you believe in Sasquatch? No answer?
No answer.
All right. Scouring libraries as a young boy for anything about Sasquatch. Moved up into a time in which I became a writer and found it an interesting subject matter.
Oh, I think it's great. I've been waiting for years. I've been making myself totally available for a Bigfoot appearance.
Here we are in the midst of civilization. Hood River back here, and on this side of the river, Washington State, and beyond the Dark Divide. The Indians called this area Kultus, all the way north of here, and they called it Kultus for a reason. Kultus means bad place, worthless place. Basically, it's taboo. You don't want to go there. The reason being, there are large, hairy-footed creatures stalking those woods.
I think that he probably is out there somewhere, lurking about in the woods.
I'm from Colorado, and they're supposed to be out here. I don't think they're in Colorado.
It seems like it's very possible that there's some kind of a ape-like creature roaming around out there. Just
shook him to the core, to the bone. And he stopped at that point and turned around and went back down because he just knew that, he was going somewhere where he shouldn't be.
Rule number 1 of any experienced tracker: know thy land. Everything else comes second, even the animal or person that you are tracking. 99% of all hunters are strangers in a strange land, unknown even to themselves. Before they ever step out through the front door, the battle has been fought, the victory conceded. And why? Because the great majority of them live so far away from their quarry. Once these dunderheads arrive in the wilderness after several hours of driving, they conduct themselves like outlanders, totally ignorant to the way in which they themselves are inextricably bound to the fields and mountains and lakes where their quarry roams. I've always dabbled with the idea of writing a Bigfoot story, and Kultus was actually a gigantic foil to bring this fantasy to life.
Old friend Sam of the Sea, who lives up on Cortez Island off the west coast, or the east coast of Vancouver Island, circumnavigated Vancouver Island in a canoe. Took him 3 years. On the west coast of Vancouver Island, sleeping under his canoe, he had the big hairy arm come under there and kind of play with him. Freaked him out, totally freaked him out. But he said that it was obviously a passive kind of a curiosity thing. Smelled terrible, said he just smelled terrible. Needless to say, he stayed under his canoe until a long time after the arm disappeared.
The native accounts of Stiyahama, otherwise known as the Stick Man, have intrigued me since I was a young child, since I was approximately 3 to 4 years of age. I'd heard the legends from some old grizzled veterans of the forest, what Theodore Roosevelt would call wizened old woodsmen.
Having grown up in the Northwest, you always hear stories about it, so I suppose he could exist. Since I was a kid, I've always heard that, people have spotted him running around out in the woods, and stranger things have been true, so why not?
If you go to Ape Cave and you hike around the Mount St. Helens area there, there's absolutely no mention whatever of Sasquatch, and the whole reason why it was called Ape Cave to begin with. It has this big long account of how the miners were assaulted by Boy Scouts, and how Ape Cave is actually named for a troop of mountain climbers called the Apes, which is absolutely spurious and false. That is not why it's named Ape Cave. It's named Ape Cave because of the incident with the miners, and the miners believed they were being attacked by Sasquatch-like creatures.
I've heard a lot about it on this show called Art Bell, and they always have people call in that have they apparently have Sasquatches in their basement, and they call in and say, "Yeah, I found this, shot this animal, and I found this in my basement." They're like, "Well, can you send us? We'll send someone out to pick up the corpse or whatever," and they never call back again. So,
right.
And then they have sometimes tapes of the calls of the Sasquatch, kind of ah.
We're so worried to even indulge in possible fantasies. So if Sasquatch is a fantasy, why not indulge in it? Why not embrace it? But no, it has to be marginalized. It's much better to name something after a troop of amateur mountain climbers than this wonderful creature that could in fact exist.
Teaching assistant from U of O who camped out also up around the Mount Adams area, and he had an experience, maybe it was Mount Jefferson, I'm not sure, there's so many of them around. Anyway, he'd fish, do some netting across the stream. He was pretty much living off the land when he'd go camping. He felt like he was being watched every time he'd pull in his net. He'd go out there at a certain time of the day, do it. Well, one day he showed up a little bit late for some reason, came through the clearing, could see down by the creek, and there's a female Yeti with two little ones, and she's pulling in his net, right? He stayed there and watched while she took the fish out of it, and there were an odd number of fish, oddly enough. She put the extra fish in the pile that she left there for him, scooped up the other fish, her two little ones, and went walking off.
You can weave this complicated tapestry with Sasquatch all you want, but what it comes down to is looming behind that silk screen, there is an irresistible combination of myth and contemporary sightings. Put the two together, and you've got one big fat possibility for something out here creeping around. So here you see your tax dollars hard at work. Big timber eating into the dark divide like a sickening cancer. Basically, sites like this are common all over the dark divide and becoming more common thanks to George Bush and the way he shot down Clinton's environmental policy and Judge Dwyer's decision to halt things like this. This is not the kind of thing that's good for bears, cougar, not the kind of thing that's good for birds, and not the kind of thing that's good for Sasquatch, if in fact Sasquatch exists. So, thank you, George Bush. I hope to have the ultimate experience and actually capture some footage of a large, elusive, man-like ape. All right, I'm not going to talk directly into the camera because I can't look at that light, it's pretty bright. We're up here. Basically, we've got a code worked out. It's possible that the Sasquatch, have a rudimentary or even advanced understanding of our language, in which case I developed a code word for Kirk to take out the camera and begin shooting, and that code word is, I don't know if I should say it if something's listening, but I'll say it, apple. If you encounter one, this is what I've thought ahead that I'm going to do. Just take a bite. Kind of a submissive pose. That way, it knows your intentions are not aggressive. Similar to what you do, actually Jane Goodall and other anthropologists mention this, when you're out among silverback gorillas, say, the gorillas in general, what you want to do, if one approaches you, the silverback approaches you, this is the pose you're supposed to do. Clasp your hands around your shoulders. See? That shows your good intentions. Not aggressive, humble, back off. I'm fine, back off. I'm not a threat to you. The strategy that I've come up with, basically, we'll set it up such that we're leaving apples along the trail in the hopes that one of our friends may come along and maybe even catch our scent and associate it with the apples. I'm taking bites out of them. Hopefully that won't dissuade them from eating them, because we certainly mean them no harm. And we'll be making our way toward Kultus Lake, leaving the apples in strategic locations. Hopefully we'll remember where they are, in which case, as we come back through, we may in fact have an encounter with one of our hairy friends.